Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
I promise you, this is not a political podcast.
Jump, from the deep into the pool, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. 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 Set up the mood.
We're good, bro. We're hot.
Oh yeah, hot as hell. You know what's funny, because the freaking cold winter weather didn't even last out here in California. It's what, 78, 82 degrees out here. I'm freaking sweating bullets, man. Testicles 1, 2. Testicles. Welcome back to Paranoid Radio Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am Trebles Garcia, your humble host. And I want to thank the Lord for allowing me to be here today, and I want to thank every single one of you for allowing me to enter your space. I also want to remind you that the most important thing that you could do for the show today is word of mouth. Check us out at paranoidradio.com. Check out the affiliations, and do not forget that the most important thing, again, that you could do for the show is drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, because that allows other people to enjoy the show as much as I enjoy making it. Woo. Guys, I just drank a Red Bull and my heart is freaking racing. I can't
Take a
stay
breath,
still.
bro.
And I'm also having a very special guest coming back on the show. Amazing episode. Let's jump in from the deep end of the pool and set the fucking mood. Please give a warm welcome to Juan Ayala, the host of the Juan on Juan podcast. What's up, big dog?
What's up, man? I'm happy to be here. I love your energy. You're always a ball of energy. And I enjoyed our conversation last time, and I'm ready.
Yeah, man. Last time you came around and you spoke about homunculus, the first time I've ever heard about a homunculus ever. You gave us some knowledge on that, bro. And we've evolved a lot from the last time you were here. I think it was last year that we spoke, and thank God, bro. That episode did very well. And again, mad shout outs to everybody that you were working with, Paranoid American, and all the old school crowd. Let them know where they can find you, big dog.
You can find all my stuff over on www.tjojp.com, at the Juan Juan podcast on pretty much all social media platforms, podcast platforms. I'm on YouTube. I'm currently demonetized on YouTube, but we're working on it. We got pinged with a strike because, again, they're always finding a way to silence us. But if you want to support the show, patreon.com/the Juan on Juan podcast and all that good stuff, man.
Make sure you hit him up. He has a lot of good content, great collaborations on his show. And dude, you have another stripe of honor. Getting striped on YouTube is huge, bro. You know? That's, man, I look up to that stuff. I wish I had enough subscribers on YouTube to say I got dinged. It matters.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. You try, like, I'm a testament to even censoring doesn't work, and that's what people need to understand, because it's not a good thing, bro. I don't think it's a good thing to get pinged, and the reason for that being is because I think people limit themselves to, you have to go to YouTube because that's where everyone is. Let's just be honest. Nobody watches on Rumble, nobody watches on Rockfin, definitely nobody watches on Odyssey. So you got to go where the people are at to spread the message. And by getting deplatformed on a platform like that, which is mainstream, because that's just the way it is, and it will always be mainstream as long as people keep watching on there. You have to exist in that ecosystem, but just know that the ecosystem wants to eat you alive and wants to chew you up and spit you back out any chance they get. I got hit for inciting violence and criminal organizations, bro.
Dude, once the Mexican, all this stupid rioting that happened a couple weeks ago because of the immigration eyes and all this riot stuff that started happening here in LA, and I was bashing. I'm a product of immigration, immigrant beaner, talking about other immigrant beaners in LA. And I was like, that I was inciting freaking violence there, bro. And man, it's freaking crazy, bro. Yeah, they just don't want you to be heard, man. You have a very powerful message, and getting closer to the truth is what they are not wanting you to spread. So, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's what I like to think so. But again, yeah, that's why I always tell everyone, make sure to sign up for the newsletter and all that stuff. Keep up to date with it, because if they knock me out, there's no way I'm going to be able to. That there goes 20,000 subscribers, and you can't get in touch with them, and all my stuff is wiped out. So that's why RSS feeds are so important, man, because they will always exist. And it's very rare, although it does happen, where you get deplatformed for talking about certain things on the RSS feed, but people can still tap into them on any Podcast 2.0 app. And it's powerful. It's out there, and they can't really do much to stop it. So
Mm,
Yeah, make sure to check that out.
love it. Hey, you're here to talk about some crazy stuff. You briefly touched on alchemy the last time you were here. Today I'm gonna ask you, dude, what is alchemy and alchemical magical manipulation? Sorry if I butchered that one up. And then
Al-
after that, we're gonna jump into some deeper shit. We're gonna start off, on training wheels here.
Alchemical, yeah. No, so alchemy, if I'm being honest with you, bro, I still don't know what it is. I've spent at least 6 years like heavily looking. That's when I started my journey, really, when I figured out podcasting. I started podcasting 6 years ago. And that's when
Mm,
I really started going on the deep end of like researching heavy, like reading actual books and things of that nature. And I always wondered to myself, I go, dude, I've went through high school. Why did I never really look into this stuff as deeply as I am now? But whatever, that's the past, right? So I started doing deep research in my late 20s, and alchemy was one of those things where I would hear it in passing and I would kind of try and read about it, but then I couldn't really pinpoint it. And these topics have a sort of way of morphing in front of you real time. I think that's one of the aspects of the occult and the esoteric, where once you think you understand it, think again. It changes right real time. I've seen that happen. And alchemy is this thing that if you look up on the internet, the first definition you're going to get is turning base metal into gold. So turning lead into gold. It's
mm,
the precursor to chemistry. The reason that we have alchemy is the reason that we have chemistry is because we had alchemy, which is a more it went from the ancient Egyptians. They say that the word alchemy came from the land of Chem, right? Chemistry, al, which is like God, holy,
mm,
that sort of prefix. Some other people think it came from the word from a Greek word, chemia, I believe it is. Alchemy. There are various stories as to how alchemy came to be. One of the main ones is that it came from the Nephilim that passed down the sacred knowledge, esoteric and secret knowledge to the daughters of men, right? The story of Genesis that everyone knows and loves. And that was one of the things that they passed down knowledge of roots, of metals, makeup, things of that nature. And so it has a supernatural origin story, and some people have even speculated that the people in the Old Testament, in the story of Genesis, Noah and his entire bloodline was actually they were all using alchemy, and that's why how they were able to live for so long. In the Bible, you go, damn, this dude was living for hundreds of years because allegedly
mm,
they had access to the Philosopher's Stone, the elixir of life, which is immortality. There are also commentaries on the book of Genesis by alchemists of the 14th, 15th century, where they were speculating that the book of Genesis is actually encoded and it's actually a formula on how to create the Philosopher's Stone, or what Carl Jung calls a unus mundus, a small universe, pretty much. So
mm,
again, this is encoded within the Bible, and I think that the Bible is encoded on many levels, and I think you can interpret things various ways, right? So it all depends. But alchemy, it was this practice where alchemists would work in the shadows, and they were trying to find a way to there are various things you can do in alchemy, but the magnum opus, they say, is the Philosopher's Stone, which is
mm,
this stone that you can some people say you can touch it and be healed, others say you can eat it and be healed, and you can also use it to gain immortality, which immortality has been a thing of conquest for humans since the beginning of time, right? Wanting to live forever. You have Juan Ponce de Leon and the fountain of youth, this fountain that you
mm,
take a bath in and you drink from it, and it turns you into a younger version or whatever it is. So that quest for immortality has always been there. And alchemy, they were doing the do. They were like, all right, let's create it. Let's create this
mm,
thing. So they would work in the shadows. And so in alchemy, you have various things you can Philosopher's Stone, elixir of life, the rebus, where you transcend reality essentially and become this androgynous being, half man, half woman. There are stories of guys like Fulcanelli that allegedly when they would eat this stone or elixir, they would go through some sort of transmutation. Their hair would fall out, their nails would fall out, their teeth would fall out, and they would grow back and they would be rejuvenated, right?
Mm.
And there's stories of Fulcanelli appearing as a cross dresser because he, again, you take on this feminine aspect. They say that angels are androgynous, so you're kind of unifying yourself with the Godhead, but essentially it's to either get as close to God as possible or what some people would interpret becoming a god. So you
Hmm.
have the Philosopher's Stone, the Elixir of Life, the Rebus, and then the creation of artificial life, which we cover, which is the homunculus. So you have various things you could do with this, but it's interesting because this evolution of alchemy, where in the time of Egypt, it was about changing the colors of metals, right? So they would kind of taint different colors of metals, and the Egyptians had a whole system on how to do that. And then it kind of shifted, right? You have the Muslim alchemists, which really refined everything, and kind of sort of same thing. They had these elixirs that would heal and all these different things. And then in the Renaissance era, 14th, 15th, 16th century, these alchemists were working with kings, queens, emperors, you name it, because
Hmm.
hey, what if you were powerful, what would you want? More power and more money. So wouldn't it make sense for you to have a group of people who were there to create money for you, right?
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
again, they say that this is how the Knights Templar were able to create all the cathedrals that they built. Like, where did the gold come from? Where did it
Mhm.
come from? Well, allegedly had figured out the secrets of alchemy through divination of Baphomet, right? This entity that we don't really know what it was. But
Mhm.
Rudolph II had an entire court of alchemists working for him 24 hours a day. There's a place in Prague you can go to what's called Alchemist Alley, which is where all the alchemists live. And this is interesting because at a time where one of the main ingredients that alchemists work with was sulfur. And
Mhm.
sulfur is right whenever you hear of demons or anything like that, you hear like, oh, there's a sulfur smell.
Smells.
So
Mhm.
when people would see that they were working with sulfur, they automatically thought, oh, they must be summoning the devil, right? Because sulfur was attributed to the devil at that time. So
Mhm.
by Rudolph II being what I've dubbed the alchemical emperor, because he was super open, freedom of religion, anyone can do whatever. He was like super open about hermetic. He loved hermeticism. He had a copy of the Voynich manuscript. He had John D. Edward Kelly, Robert Flood. You had Tycho Brahe. He had all the the greatest hits of the Renaissance. This dude had it, right?
Mhm.
And this was at a
Mashup.
time, yeah, this was at a time where you could get killed, bro, for doing this.
Mhm.
So then, when the church started coming out, they were like, they banned, right? One of the popes had put out a thing where they're like, hey, listen, we don't want alchemists anymore, right? No matter how much money they're bringing in, we want them gone. So then
Mm.
that's when they went into hiding. And a lot of the stuff that you see is very encrypted. So you see a lot of symbolisms and things like that, that it was about hiding the knowledge from the regular man. Because think about it. If you have sacred knowledge, if you have some knowledge that you don't want anybody else to get a hold of, what are you going to do? You're going to either code it, or you're going to code it and you're going to share with other people in your crew, right? Your clique. So only the initiates who could read these plates, who could read these alchemical emblems, were the ones that would practice the alchemical art. Now, interesting part about that is in a lot of these cathedrals, for example, Notre Dame, there are alchemical plates like on the walls engraved. And if you follow Fulcanelli's work, Mystery of the Cathedrals, he talked about how he didn't speculate, he said it, that
Mm.
the secrets to the Philosopher's Stone are literally engraved into these buildings.
Mm.
And I've heard cathedrals being called music and stone, right? Like these crazy intricate things. Like
Acoustic properties. Yeah.
it sounds crazy, right? Like if you think about it, the way you look at them, and allegedly the guys that built it, a lot of them were built by the Knights Templar and various people throughout history. They hid these secrets in plain sight. What a better place to hide it! And all the ones that we've lost, there's been a ton of cathedrals that have burned down and have been destroyed throughout time, but a lot of them that still do exist, you can go out and see these plates. So alchemy comes from this, turning metallurgy in the Egyptian times, changing the color of metals, to this pursuit for an actual physical thing, which is the Philosopher's Stone, this red stone. And then it turns into more like a spiritual thing now. Like it's more
Mm.
of Israel Regardie, one of the famous occultists and the secretary for a while to Aleister Crowley, and the guy who I guess exposed the OTO and put out a bunch of work about theirs. Israel Regardie at one point, two times in particular, while trying to create the Philosopher's Stone, actually inhaled in, I forgot what he was trying to do, the name of the operation, but he inhaled in these toxic fumes and cooked his lungs from the inside out. And for the rest of his life, he had breathing problems, right? And this was in the 1900s. And when that happened to him, he's like, you know what? The Philosopher's Stone isn't real. It's a spiritual thing. Because he got hurt trying to look for it, right? And now you have more of a Carl Jung interpretation, you know, Jungian alchemy, which is more of, he made the connection of like, hey, a lot of these things that these alchemists are painting is stuff that I seen in my dreams, right? So he took it and made it of a more spiritual, psychological thing where it was about purifying your soul, yourself, and projecting. So the art of projection, projecting something to its purest form. So an alchemist is projecting lead to gold. He's purifying lead to its purest form, because what they believed was that everything is made of the same material, which is true. Everything is made of atoms if you want to follow mainstream, you know, academia. And if the same atoms are in this phone that there is in this keyboard, then technically, you know, I can turn this phone into a key. You know, that's a crude comparison, but they're like, hey, if lead is made about the same thing as gold, then I could turn one into the other and vice versa, right? That's the way that they were thinking.
Very Lucy-ish movie plot.
Like the horror movie Lucy?
No, the movie Lucy with Scarlett Johansson. She goes, "What is this?" She goes, "This is not a pen," and then she transformed it into a bunch of different things. You haven't seen that movie? Oh, you gotta watch it, bro. I'm surprised. Trust me, I don't watch movies often either. And then it also reminds you of Star Wars. Right? I don't know if you know if you're a Star Wars guy, but like they break into the, in order to create the crimson the lightsaber for any dark side wielder, they have to make it bleed. They have to
But
change
you're
it
talking
from
about the
within.
new stuff. You're talking about no, don't talk to me about the new stuff, bro.
God,
Original
this is not a Star Wars
trilogy,
conversation.
First six, bro. That's it. Everything else is
How do you?
garbage.
No, I'm not talking about the sequels, bro. I'm a prequel fan, bro. Anyway,
Where did they do that? What episode is that?
what episode is what?
Where they have to
Any
make it bleed.
any freaking Darth has to make their they have to kill the Jedi, get the freaking the stone,
Really?
and then they have to make it bleed. Do you know that? That's how you make the lightsaber.
No.
Yes, dude. I thought you were a Star Wars fan.
Not as deep as you, bro.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I thought wrong then. Yeah, they have to kill a Jedi. They can't like the red stones are not natural. The only like natural ones are like any other color except for red. So they have to kill a Jedi, get the freaking stone, and then bleed into it. They have to put all their anger and fear and everything, anxiety into that stone, make it crack and bleed, and then it turns red, and then that's why they're so special. All their passion and power.
Yeah,
Crazy
see, I
stuff.
know that part of the lore, dude.
Yeah, man. Anyway, you mentioned something about these angels and us trying to mimic them and try to be like more like gods and try to be immortal, right? Okay. We're trying to be more like them, and then all they're trying to be is get inside of us in many different forms, spiritually and physically. They got into the daughters of men, don't you think?
Well, if you think about, I look at it differently, bro. I look at the Nephilim as maybe more of like a parasite. So people think that they were physically having intercourse with the daughters of men, but what if they infected them? What if they were infected by like something else, like
That
like a
changed their DNA
parasite?
code.
Yeah, like that sort of thing. Like, in Prometheus, the movie Alien Prometheus, where like, they it's kind of different, but they kind of take their DNA and they, take that black goo and then they kind of dissolve into whatever place that they're in. So think about it like that. What if the Nephilim were like these giants of Prometheus and they kind of dissolved themselves into the water, and then the daughters of men maybe drank from that water and they got infected. So they entered the daughters of men. Everyone thinks automatically like, oh, they were having sex with them. Like
I love
they
it.
lusted over they lusted over them. And I mean, what a better way than to actually get in her, like in her guts, like not like that, but in her guts, and you dissolve yourself into maybe a black goo or something, and you were
Oh,
able to
man.
enter the daughters of men. I mean, we know parasites are a real thing, and if you zoom into parasites, bro, they look like little demons, right? Like all
Bro,
these different bro.
You're hitting points, man. You're hitting points. It's
That's
true.
a different perspective. You know what I'm saying? That's a different
Mhm.
way of looking at it. And I think that to answer your question as to why we want to mimic, or become like them or vice versa, is because we're experiencing reality from two different perspectives, right? And they always say you don't know what you have until you lose it, type of thing. So they're probably bored, bro. So think about being an interdimensional, tempestrial being that transcends all of space and time.
Mm,
Hey, you might get bored after a while. And it seems that that concept of a bored god is
mm,
kind of throughout history. Like Zeus would have sex and intercourse with anything that really moved. He was probably bored of controlling reality. And the same thing with us. Some people are bored of the human experience. So I wonder what it would be like if I could fly, right? If I could
mm.
teleport from here, Super Saiyan, Dragon Ball Z type. I wonder if how I could. You ever be in the shower, bro, when you were a kid and just like try and turn into a Super Saiyan?
I used to do it in school. I used to transform into a Super Saiyan in school, bro. What are you talking
You
about,
know what
man?
I'm
You
saying?
never
So
did it.
I did 100% in the shower, like, oh. So then you're trying to experience reality from a different perspective. So I think that's why we seek to live forever and seek to be, either become one with the Godhead or trying to see God or something in some sort of way. I think that's been at the core of really any major world religion, because at the end you're unified with God, you're unified with the source, you're unified with the one, right? It's always about that. You have to be good in this life to transcend to the next. You have to
Mhm.
follow all the steps here. You have to make sure you uh, put all the right spots in your cosmic celestial Rubik's cube, and make sure you have it done before you die, right? To be able to crack the code to go on to the next place, space, whatever, time, who knows. And alchemy was one of those things where it answered all those questions, bro. You wanted unlimited money? You got it. You got gold. How are you going to spend all that money? You're not going to have
You
enough
would
time. Bro, we
materialize
got
what you
it. We
wanted.
got
Hmm.
immortality. What's next? Damn, I wish I could create artificial life. Boom, we got that too. And then it's like, oh, wait, I want to control space and time. We got that too, because allegedly, according to Falconelli, was the secrets to alchemy was that you got to a point that when you achieve the magnum opus, the light from that reaction would transform your DNA, and you would then be able to get past and manipulate reality from a different perspective outside of it. So you're literally become this light being, and you transcend space and time, and then you're able to control it from the outside. That's why a lot of the people who achieved the magnum opus all disappeared, and then they see them 200 years later, like, yo, we saw the immortal Falconelli over there, 200 years later, or Nicholas Flamel, or whoever it is. There's various of them throughout history, bro.
I
Saint
I
Germain.
have I have to amplify something. I've been saying this for a while. I've been thinking. I'm not a global or a flat earther, right? I'm more of a simulation
I'm a
guy. And
polyhedron earther now, dude.
what does that mean?
It's like a 20-sided shape. It's flat on the sides, but it's still round.
Why not? Fuck it. This conspiracy theorizing. Here we go, man. So I'm like thinking, okay, simulation. Even if God it does exist, because he does, as a creator, and he just lets us at free will simulate our life. It's a simulation, technically. So I'm thinking, light. It's one of the only things, light speed, element, something that we will never fathom or reach, right? Because we're encompassed in our three-dimensional matter, space, and time, freaking reality, right? All right. Well then I'm thinking lighthood, reaching lighthood would be the next checkpoint save game. Like if you're playing Grand Theft Auto in PlayStation 2, you will have to go put the memory card and check save game next. Then you start growing your character. So, and this is gonna lead to the next question. To ascend in a way, you would have to formulate your cube, like you said, right? Stop trying to be a god, but then hack yourself, hack your DNA to become something near god-ish or reach lighthood so that you can transcend into the other dimension. Which then brings me into this. I'm gonna bring back homunculus because it kind of. I really wanted to ask you that. Talking about transcending and then transferring your essence to another dimension. Wouldn't this be interesting if you created a homunculus using all the right chemicals and all the ingredients and spices and chemical X,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Pretty
And
much.
then you invented and you interjected with AI or an AI quantum chip.
Sure, I mean that's another version, in my opinion, of the. And by the way, it was an icosahedron. It's a 20-faced. It looks like a D20, like
Mm,
that.
mm. I'm gonna
The
look it up.
the concept of uh transferring your consciousness into a homunculus. That was one of the utilities of the homunculus, that the alchemist would make it and transfer his consciousness to it, because
Mhm.
again, it's this alchemical magical being. So a homunculus in and of itself already it is a magical entity, because it came from the art, it came from alchemy, it came from the sacred art, so it's already magic, and it's able to see the future, it's able to transcend space and time. And that's why they were able to get the powers that they got from it, because of that, because it was made through magic, so it was a magical entity. And I think that, right, taking this whole concept and stepping it up and creating a chip and then transferring your consciousness into it,
Mhm.
that'd be another way of doing the same thing, except now you have hardware. You don't need the wetware anymore, the wetware being
Damn.
blood and bone stuff, which that's a lot of people say that the cattle mutilations and all these things is the government collecting fluids for their hybrid entities that they're creating in some underground lab somewhere, right, to transfer the consciousness of the Nephilim or something into them. Like, we don't know, but it's an
Mm,
interesting thing of like, what is happening to all these cattle? Why aren't animals eating them after the fact? Like, is something supernatural going on? Is it the
mm,
government, or are they doing it to scare us? Like, we don't know, but some people have speculated that the government is creating biological entities, wetware, if you will, to transfer consciousness into it. But I think we're past that. I think that, somewhere there are people like, dude, I mean, Elon Musk and Neuralink. What's to say that you can't, hey, do a factory reset on that guy. Take that and then put it into a micro SD. Remember memory cards? There were only 8 megabytes. 8 megabytes. Now we can have. I have as micro SD cards with like 200 something gigs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the craziest thing. So
mhm,
to
mhm.
think that maybe perhaps you're able to transfer some of a person's consciousness into some super high tech computer, if not all of it, I don't think that's out of the question, dude. I think that
You
it is.
ever you ever played Assassin's Creed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you'll be able to hack enough DNA to go back into the memories of an ancestor of an ancestor?
Where do you think these people get these ideas from, bro?
Get the fuck out. It's too much.
Dude,
That's
and
deep.
that game is crazy, right? Because they're going back in time through his we know DNA stores
A lot more
information,
memory. Yeah,
like a
that's crazy.
lot. A little gram of DNA stores like a crazy amount of information. So
Mhm.
to have the technology to tap into and then go back in time, that game, where do you think they get the ideas from? Like, it's coming from somewhere, in my opinion. I think that
The
usually
ether.
fiction has an aspect of reality into it. How much of that? That's up for debate. But
Quick last question because we're already hitting that 30-minute mark, but we're gonna go a little over if you're okay with that. I
okay.
have a quick question. Okay, so I was scrolling through your episodes, recent episodes, and I seen on Apple Podcast you have something about a biblical spy. Whoa, whoa, hit me, bro. What is this?
It's called Ancient Nephilim Espionage. And in that particular episode, I was talking to Joel Thomas from Free the Rabbits podcast, and he was breaking down the intelligence connections of Aleister Crowley with, MI5 and all these different connections. And throughout that episode, and this is something I've been kind of toying with as of recently, because, right, you talked about finding a technology that is able to align you with God, that is able to align yourself, purify yourself, ascend yourself, whatever it is, to this higher level status of reality.
Mm,
And I think that magic does that. And the thing about magic is it real or not? Right? We know magic. We know that there are occultists that practice this, that have Goetia, and they talk to angels, and they're, Enochian, and they're able to talk to entities and all this stuff. Is that possible? Yes or no? That's the conspiracy. Some people will believe that yes. Some people will believe that no. I'm in the camp of maybe perhaps these people are doing these things to put themselves in a state of mind to bring forth a change. So there might be what I dubbed on another podcast, self-induced psychosis. So a sort of a self-hypnotism, even if you're not actually talking to entities, but you're making yourself believe that you are.
ha.
And by doing so, you bring forth a change, even if you didn't do anything, right? Because they always talk about like, oh, the Super Bowl and the Illuminati, and they're putting all these symbolism. I think that these people do these rituals and they believe that they're causing a change when in reality they're not doing anything, right? They're not really doing much. They're just imprinting stuff in your mind that maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I can't answer that for you. But the ancient espionage thing is that throughout all of history, and maybe not throughout all of history, but at least the figures that I'm going to talk about. You have Henry Cornelius Agrippa, which laid the foundation really for Western esotericism with his 3 books on the occult. You had Trimethius, which is the father of cryptography. Let me make sure I'm saying that right, because I always get it mixed up. Trimethius. I'm sorry, Johannes Trithemius. Okay, Trithemius. I always say Trimethius. Trithemius. He's
The
the
other way
guy
around.
who, he's the
Your
guy who
dyslexia
invents.
kicks in.
Yeah, exactly. He's the guy who created cryptography, and he's the guy who created how to hide messages in text that you wouldn't otherwise be able to pick up. This is linked to alchemy because it was all about hiding the secrets in plain sight, right? This guy wrote about the occult. He had a particular book called the Stenographia, which was a book on communicating with angels from surface level. But in actuality, it was a book encoded on how to hide codes within text, right? Intelligence. So, and I talked to a guy yesterday who is an expert on the JFK assassination. And he said that a lot of the documents that they sift through sometimes are encoded. Actual documents from the government are encoded because let's say that this information would leak out to another foreign power. They wouldn't know what the hell they're talking about. So they're talking in code in the paperwork. So I'm like, wait a minute, how are you sure you're reading the right thing? He's like, oh, there's a way to check it, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, point is that this is linked to intelligence, to espionage. And I don't know about you, bro, but it seems that the Epstein name list would make you have a target on your back quicker than if you told the CIA, hey, I can summon Baphomet. They'd be like, cool. Oh, but you have that list? We're going to come a knocking, right? So the actual, we have the concept of the Faustian bargain where you make a deal with the devil for some esoteric occulted knowledge and you give up your soul. Oh, it's dangerous knowledge, right? Well, it seems that throughout all of history, the more dangerous knowledge is you having a blackmail over somebody else, right? So to tie it into the occult, to tie it into this Game of Thrones, the guy that had the bald guy where he's like working in this. Nobody suspected him because he's a eunuch or whatever it is, right? But he was the guy that was running everything behind the scenes, right? So this class of people, alchemists included, because back then, a queen or an emperor would have their astrologer, would have the person that's in charge of changing their bedpan. And usually those people who were on a different level, although they were lower in society, they had access and information that they were able to acquire from being in that lower level of class of just changing the bedpan of the emperor, right? But maybe he heard something while he was doing that he can then use as blackmail and have a leg up on that person.
It's natural. Yeah. It's a
That
natural human
is
thing.
the dangerous information. So we go back to Trithemius, who was associates with Henry Cornelius Agrippa. John Dee was involved in there, the original 007, right? John Dee, the court astrologer to Queen Elizabeth. And these guys wrote about the occult in a satirical sort of way. But the way that they did it was they were making fun of it, but putting the information out. This is funny, but this is how you summon demons. Or is it? Or is it, again, encoded information of something else? Okay. Johann Weyer, this live-in student at the age of 13 of Henry Cornelius Agrippa. Weird, but who cares? Whatever. Use your imagination. A 13-year-old boy living with some man at some point, right? He wrote a book called the Pseudomonarchium Daemonum. And this book was a grimoire with 69 demons and how to interact with them and how to summon them. And it was a book that had a prayer on how to protect yourself from these said demons. That book influenced the Goetia of the 72 demons. Now, interesting part about Veyer's book is that he wrote it to make fun of people who believed in the occult. It was a LARP. It was a satirical piece. So what does that make the Goetia? If it was inspired by a work of comedy and
Oh,
satire,
fuckery. Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
again, and this is something that people have allegedly used to summon demons and talk to demons, or was it all in their head? And is
Holy
the
snap.
occult fake and gay since the very beginning? And perhaps it has its purpose. Maybe a lot of the stuff that Crowley wrote about needed to be deciphered. And he was actually running an intelligent operation this whole time. And hey, what a better way than to be like, hey, we can't send our troops over to your country because that would raise some flags. But let's send this occultist, this rich kid who, is into occultism and can talk to demons and stuff like that, and let him establish a lodge to the OTO or to the
That's called
AA.
intelligence laundry. No, what's it called? Money laundering. No, intelligence laundering. That's basically what it is.
Reconnaissance. It's collecting information because who is usually in these societies? Who usually joins Freemasonic organizations, Rosicrucian? The top of the top. The people who usually politicians, people of influence within their region, locally or whatever, right? A lot of presidents have been Freemasons. A lot of people have been in secret societies. So, hey, this dude's just going to start a freedom of religion, right? They're just
Bro,
doing their thing.
but what you're saying is hacked.
Bro, and
You're saying
look through the Bible, and all the stories involve spies and collecting information of some sort, sending spies to Sodom and Jericho to scout it out. They come back, they're like, hey, there's these huge giant thing. David had a whole system of spies. King Solomon had a whole system of spies. It's all about collecting the real dangerous information, which is blackmail, bro. And this go tell the CIA or the IRS or whoever or the FBI that you know how to summon Asmodeus. Hey guys, I'm gonna summon Asmodeus. I'm gonna curse all you guys. Okay, have fun. But now tell them like, hey, yo, I saw so and so, and here's the proof that I saw so and so doing something. You were at the right time at the right place, or maybe wrong time, wrong place, and that's how people get Clinton, bro. That's how people
dude,
wake up dead.
you hacked conspiracy theories, bro. You hacked the entire idea of the occult. Because think about it. Everybody that's dark has magic, occult. People are talking about all these other magical things that they could do, even curanderas and all these freaking, the taboo and the voodoo and all this stuff. Yeah, okay.
But
But it
does it
all
work?
comes down to, does it work? And then how much information can I collect from you to blackmail you? So the real occult will be
Bro,
blackmail.
the church. Why do you think the church is so powerful? People would go in, give their confessions once a week. You don't think that they're collecting and keeping tabs on you behind the scenes and using that information against you? Oh, we heard so and so cheated on his wife. Oh, he's the senator or he's the whatever, right? Every Sunday you go in, you confess your sins, and hey, you're good for the next week. See you next week. You don't think they're keeping tabs and keeping a little notebook, about hey, Angel did this week and then that, and hey, when they're strapped for something, hey, Angel, be a shame if that information got out about what you did that one night when you were out late with the boys.
This reminds you of the simplest, and this is how we're gonna be leading the conversation out. This reminds me of TikTok. When you give a like to that chick with the fat ass, bro, and it goes into your non-seen liked. If your girl goes through that phone and she goes through your non-seen liked,
Right.
it's gonna tell on you, bro. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my god, man, the blackmail
It's
is
all
real.
about, in my opinion, they're trying to silence me. It's
Mm.
all about the collection of information. Information, we know that there are data brokers. We know information is powerful. Data is a hot commodity, especially nowadays. And in my opinion, that's what it's now. Think about the concept of a watcher.
Mm-hmm.
What's a watcher doing? A watcher is watching
Collecting data.
everything you're
Holy
doing.
crap.
Now, again, I don't know where the interdimensionalism and all that other bullshit comes in. I can't tell you. I'm still piecing it together. But if Occam's razor, this is all about intelligence since the very beginning. And again, how I mentioned earlier, all fiction has some truth in it. All lies have some truth in it. All conspiracies have some truth in it. How much is truth? We don't know. But since the beginning of time, are angels real? Are demons real? Can you control them? Can they interact with us? That's a conspiracy, bro. The Genesis 6
Oh,
conspiracy.
the entire book, all of
Was
it.
Jesus
It's a
real?
giant
Like
conspiracy.
all these things, bro, have been things that we're still debating till this day. And I'm not here to disprove anyone's religion or anything. I believe in Jesus Christ, and if you accept them in your heart as your Lord and Savior, you'll be saved. But everyone has their own ideologies. Everyone has their own belief systems, And I think a majority of it, maybe Jesus was a mob leader, bro. Like we don't know. He had disciples and shit. He had a crew, bro. He was flipping
Dude,
tables. They owed him money or
bro,
something. We don't know.
he was a buff one too. He's a carpenter, bro. Think about it. He was a
Or he had
buff
them
son of a
hands.
gun.
Yeah.
He had some calluses, bro. I'm telling you, dude. You never know, man. Yeah, dude
Maybe
had
that's
some
why he
anger.
was taken out, bro. Maybe that's why they took him out because he, pissed off some other people. Or
He
we don't
could
know,
have
bro. We don't know.
that dude was alchemizing freaking things out of a fish, gold out of a fish to pay his taxes, bro.
Yeah,
Shut the
bro.
front door. Call the IRS on this guy, man.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen. Fucking Juan. You killed it, bro. Make sure you check out Juan. Juan, let them know where they can find you, bro.
www.tjojp.com. At the Juan on Juan podcast on pretty much all social media platforms, and you can find the show Juan on Juan wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm on Spreaker, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple, I'm on everywhere. Come find me, and if you want to support the show, patreon.com/the Juan on Juan podcast, bro.
Oh yeah. Guys, he's a popular guy. Make sure you check him out. Drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify because that allows us to enjoy the show. That allows you to enjoy the show as much as I enjoy making it. Peace out.
Later.
Thank you, bro.